Welcome to Freedom's Herald, a defense against that which would erode your liberties. You know, it seems America's elected leftists really want to give kids the right to vote. For those of you who haven't heard, this idea is so popular and potentially empowering to the left that a majority of House Democrats voted in favor of lowering America's voting age to 16. It's no surprise whatsoever that House Speaker Pelosi endorsed the idea as well. There is but one reason and one reason only for the left to lower the age limit on voting, and it has nothing to do with their claiming that young people need to be more involved in the direction of the nation. Their underhanded appeal to 16 and 17-year-olds is a function of their incremental losing of the black vote and the growing ranks of middle-aged and elderly abandoning their insipid ideology of how they believe America should look and behave. Is there any limit as to how mean, low, and base these people will go in order to destroy America's values, to ensure their own survival and ultimately dominance? This is a script written exclusively for a leftist takeover of our nation. And as history has shown us, when the tyranny of the left is in place, they'll keep themselves in those positions of power by catch-22 legislation, subterfuge, and, of course, threats of incivility and violence directed against anyone thinking differently than themselves. Anyone who will threaten their authority. Such has been the case in China, Russia, previously the Soviet Union, Cuba, and, most recently, Venezuela. All were leftist states, and all committed atrocities against their fellow citizens to further their agenda and maintain their power. Socialism has to be enforced at gunpoint. Democracy does not. So how much of that truth is actually being told to our school kids in the U.S.? I'm sure it's very little, if any. Even America's teachers themselves at this point probably don't know enough about the facts of history's leftist tyranny and failures to be able to fully explain it to their students. If not that, then they're covering up those same facts for their own ends. In many corners of the U.S., education has become more of a politically biased indoctrination, most notably in our universities. A recent Harris poll, released by Axios, displayed the reality of that indoctrination when it found that nearly half of all young people, meaning those under the age of 24, said they would prefer to live in a socialist country. The poll never asked them why or for what reason. That same poll, conducted between the dates of February 21st and the 25th of 2019, also found that these same young people believe the government should allow private insurance by a margin of 4-1. That still means, however, that 1 in 5 do not believe the government should allow a citizen a right to even choose their own health care provider. 20% would rather see you legally forced to accept the government's terms, or else what? Most of those surveyed couldn't define socialism. Many even ridiculously believed, for instance, that President George W. Bush killed more people than Joseph Stalin, the ruthless Soviet dictator whose regime actually murdered tens of millions. The fact is, socialism attracts widespread support from millennials and members of Generation Z, who at the same time are ignorant of what the implementation of socialism almost invariably entails. Considering all this, are you amazed at all that the leftist party of the United States wants to extend the vote to people who are not yet even out of high school? Youngsters who may not even drive, hold a job, nor even have had a U.S. civics class or government operations. Perhaps not even passed a secondary school history class yet. It's clear that in the debate over socialism, education is where we have failed. A generation, or generations of young Americans, are falling under the impression that socialism, whatever they think it is, will bring more prosperity. History, of course, demonstrates exactly the opposite. So why would they want to do such a thing? According to the Daily Wire, it's pretty obvious as well. Because left-wing groups are desperately trying to find ways to get children to vote or be used as useful tools for their agenda, which now appears to include outright socialism. There's a lot of speculation in my analysis, but what do you believe the real reason more than likely is? I'll let you decide. A bit of hope, however, also exists for America as a whole. According to a recent NBC Wall Street Journal poll, just 25% of respondents found socialist to be a desirable trait for a presidential candidate. It was among the least liked traits in the entire poll. But that included the understanding and education possessed by a more educated and experienced group of Americans. Lowering the voting age to 16 would, in fact, degrade American democracy and turn the United States into a bona fide mob-rule country that the founders feared and tried to constitutionally protect us against. As Americans, we have to start doing more to create responsible adults and citizens rather than perpetually apply democracy in places where it is unwarranted, those places where the confusion intentionally spread by the left makes the lines between socialism and democracy blurry. Some information was courtesy of the Daily Signal, and technical assistance was provided by Brad Neufeld. I'm Tom Gandley.